Hi, I'm Dr. Drew Hanks with the Smarter Lunchrooms Movement and Cornell Center for Behavioral Economics and Child Nutrition Programs, otherwise known as the Ben Center. Today I'm going to talk to you about experimental design and how you can actually set up your own experiment in your own lunchroom. But first of all, let's talk about the common data sources that are out there. There are survey data. You've probably been called multiple times by people asking you questions about your political preferences or the amount of time you watch television, those sorts of things. Those are surveys, and from those we can understand behavior in aggregate. There is also observational data, where data are collected about your purchases at a store, or data collected about GDP for the United States, or about amount of hours that kids sit in front of the TV. Those are all observational data. There's also experimental data that are collected in settings where a situation is controlled or defined by the experimenter, and they collect data to test a hypothesis or a hypothesis to see how a change that they make actually affects behavior or other variables. Those are all common data sources, but we're going to focus today on experiments. Now, in the Ben Center, we focus on what we call field experiments, and those differ from lab experiments. In a lab experiment, the experimenter is able to control the environment to a high degree, such that they're able to isolate particular situations or behaviors they want to study. In a field experiment, the environment can be changed, but the participants in the experiment still behave as they would in any other situation. So let me give you a few examples from our own research. First of all, we did a study with pre-ordering, where students could order their entree at the beginning of the day instead of in the lunch line. And we had a hypothesis that this would actually increase or improve the healthiness of the entrees that they were ordering. So we set up an experiment where we made some students not pre-order and others did. And we found that with pre-ordering, students were 92% more likely to select a healthier entree. Other situations, we set up a setting where we offered sliced fruit to students. And in other situations, we set up a convenience line that had healthier items only. Those are all examples of field experiments because we did not control a setting like in a lab experiment. We let the setting be exactly the same except for one small change. Okay? And that's what's important. And the reason we do field experiments is because we want students to behave as naturally as possible. So the principle is this. In studying behavior in school lunchrooms, we use field experiments to identify the behavior that occurs when we introduce a change in a lunchroom. And the way we set up an experiment is this. We first of all think about a change that we want to make. For example, we want to see students eating more fruit, or we want students to take more vegetables, or we want to see how we can get students to take a healthier entree, those sorts of situations. Then we identify a change we will make in the cafeteria in order to make that behavior happen. For example, we place fruit next to the register, or we provide sliced fruit, or we make healthier items much more convenient by placing them on a convenience line where no other items are offered. Then we think about a timeline. For our research, we usually do a 6 weeks pre and 6 weeks post or treatment period, where during the pre-period, no changes made, but we still collect data in order to understand the behavior before we actually make the change. During the treatment period, we make the change at the beginning and leave that change in there for that full 6 weeks. And we collect data during that period so we can understand behavior, study the behavior during that period and see how the change affected the student's behavior, such as taking more fruit or taking the healthier entree. And then we decide what kind of data we're going to collect in order to evaluate this, right? We think about, are we going to collect sales data? Are we going to collect transaction data? Are we going to collect production records? Or are we going to collect tray waste, where we actually look at how much they've actually eaten? And then we think about, how are we going to analyze the data? But for this particular training, we are focusing on how to set up the experiment and not how to analyze the data. Once again, The principle is this: field experiments help us identify the changes, the appropriateness of the changes we make in lunchrooms by modifying the environment just enough to lead students to make lead students towards a particular behavior. Okay? So over the next week, I invite you to think about what kind of changes you can make in your own lunchroom. For example, are you wanting students to take more fruit? Or are there particular entrees you think would be better for the students? Okay, identify the change. Think about, what can I do to lead students in that direction? Do I place fruit next to the register? Do I place it right in the middle of the lunch line where students can see it and take it with greater ease? Or do I place the entree at the first in front of all the other entrees? Then think about the timeline you want to choose. Okay, what's your pre-period look like, and what does your treatment period look like? And when will they be? And for how long will they be? Then think about, okay, in order to evaluate this change, what kind of data am I going to collect? And how will I collect that data? Production records are in every single cafeteria, so you can use those. Also, sales records are available, and tray waste can also be collected. Once again, I invite you to think about what changes you can make. If you need extra support, please visit www.smarterlunchrooms.org for materials and other items that can help you as you make the changes in your lunchroom. Once again, I'm Dr. Drew Hanks with the Smarter Lunchrooms Movement.